Back has always been my favorite body part to work out. It's such a complex group of muscles and it makes such a huge difference when it comes to aesthetics and performance that you really need to develop it a lot. So in this video I'm going to take you through my top 6 back exercises and I'm going to give you some general tips for the best back workouts of your life. For the purpose of this video, we are going to split the back into 4 main muscle groups: the traps, which give the appearance of thickness and are responsible for scapular retraction, elevation and depression. The rhomboids, found between the shoulder blades and spine, have the main function of scapular retraction and are super important for posture health. The lats, which are the biggest upper body muscle, and their main functions are to adduct and extend the shoulder. These are the muscles that will make your back appear wide and with a V shape. And the spinal erectors, which extend all the way up your back, and their main functions are to extend, rotate and laterally flex your back. So before we go to the exercises, it's important that you actually feel your muscles working, and that's a problem for a lot of people with back. So I recommend activation exercises to improve the mind-muscle connection and to warm up the area. My favorites include the unilateral band row with a small rotation at the end. Really try to focus and touch on the muscle working. I also like lateral pull downs on my knees and cable pullovers. So let's take a look at my top 6 back exercises for hypertrophy. When it comes to back exercises, you have 2 main options: the vertical and the horizontal movements. A common myth is that vertical exercises will make your back wider and horizontal exercises will make your back thicker. However, this is not accurate. Both will contribute to both, and horizontal movements can sometimes activate your lats even more than vertical movements, with a bigger rhomboid and traps activation as well. So horizontal movements seem to be better overall, but of course you should include both. The first exercise is the pull-up and its variations. Probably the king of all back exercises and lat in particular. Here you have 3 grip options. The pronated grip or classical pull-up. This is optimal for back engagement, but the hardest one of the 3. The neutral grip, which is easier because it activates more of the forearm and brachialis, and the supinated grip with the palms facing us. This is the option that activates the bicep the most. You can and should use all grips, especially if you can't do a lot of classic pull-ups. Other great options for beginners are the band assisted pull-up, the machine pull-up if your gym has one, and jumping, holding on to the bar and doing just the descending part of the movement. When it comes to the grip width, the ideal one for lat engagement seems to be slightly outside shoulder width, with a very wide grip or a very close grip being worst for lat activation and overall back development. Start the movement by engaging and retracting the scapula, chest up, glutes contracted, and imagine that you are pulling with your elbows. Think about touching your elbows behind your body. I know that's impossible, of course, but it's a good mental cue. Also try doing a thumbless or suicide grip with your thumb over the bar. I found this to be more effective and it's the grip I use in most back movements. Next, we've got the barbell bent over row. A personal favorite of mine. With this you can use a lot of weight and work your back as a whole from top to bottom. For body inclination you have 2 options. With a more horizontal position you can hit more your lats, and if you stand more upright you hit more your traps and upper back. For the grip, you can try both an underhand and an overhand grip, and they have slight differences in arm activation. Personally, I prefer an overhand grip. Another important thing is the bar path, or where should you take the bar. Is it to your rib cage, your belly button, your hips? This will depend on your goals. The higher you take it, the harder the movement gets, and you'll target more upper back. For lat development, I recommend going slightly below your belly button, and this is probably your strongest position. Another important tip is to keep your elbows in, around 45 degrees or less. This will maximize lat activation, with a more open elbow position being harder and targeting more the upper back and rear delts. When doing any row, the bar should start directly under your shoulders and the movement should end with the bar under your elbows. So it's not a straight up and down motion. This will increase lat activation. When it comes to barbells versus dumbbells, I think using dumbbells is a great variation and I use it a lot. With this one you have a bigger range of motion and can really bring the elbows behind your back. You can also use a neutral grip, which makes the movement more natural. Next we got the dumbbell chest supported row. A 2005 study found that back activation is higher in chest supported exercises, which makes sense since there's no stabilizing muscles involved and it's more of an isolation exercise. I recommend dumbbells over barbells here because of the increased range of motion and neutral grip. You can also play with bench inclination, with a more inclined bench being better to target the upper back and traps, and a less inclined bench being better to target your mid back and lats. As always, remember to keep your chest up and start the movement with the dumbbells directly below your shoulders. Retract your scapula, imagine that the weight is placed on your elbows and really squeeze your shoulder blades together at the top. Next, we've got the pull down and its variations. A 2013 study found that lat activation is the same between the pull down or the pull up. So it's a great exercise for those who can't do pull-ups or just want to add more volume. As far as grip width goes, a slightly outside shoulder width grip seems best, and it's a position where you can lift the most amount of weight. A wider grip does not equal a wider back. That's another myth. When it comes to different grips, you also have three options: the pronated grip, which seems to be more effective at targeting the lats, the neutral grip, and the supinated grip. You can and should play around with all three. Once again, start the movement with your chest up, retract your scapula and pull with your elbows, similar to the pull-up. The next exercise is one that I named the row down, a hybrid between a pull down and a cable row. This is the exercise in which I feel the biggest lat contraction. I found it to be very effective and it's easy to understand why. With this one you have a complete range of motion. Starting with the lats in a stretch position, you can even tilt your body to the side to increase the stretch. Start by pulling directly down to further engage the lats, followed by scapular retraction while you start elevating your torso. At the end, make sure you really bring it all the way back and slightly tilt to the side you're working to get some lateral flexion in. This will be the biggest lat contraction you've ever felt, I promise. And for the last exercise, we've got shrugs for traps. I really prefer dumbbell shrugs over barbell shrugs, as long as you have heavy enough dumbbells, because you can hold them by your side instead of the front. This will increase trap activation and make the movement more comfortable. Also, hold the dumbbells away from your torso to maximize trap recruitment. Trap muscle fibers run in a diagonal way, so with a wider grip you can hit them better. If you use a barbell, make sure you go with a wider grip to get the same effect. Also, keep your arms straight the whole time. Now, as far as lower back goes, you don't need to work your lower back directly unless it's a weak point. You can get plenty of lower back development just with these exercises, with deadlifts, with squats, all of that. But if you are failing during these exercises, during the rows, because of your lower back, it's probably a good idea to incorporate some lower back extensions in your workout. But do not mistake lower back weakness for abdominal weakness, as the abs will be involved in all of these exercises, and a lot of the times you will fail because of your abs and not your lower back. So work, strengthen and develop your core as a whole so you can lift more weights and perform better. Another important thing is that I didn't include the deadlift here. the deadlift is my favorite overall exercise. It's the best exercise to develop all your posterior chain from the top to the bottom, but when it comes to pure back hypertrophy, yeah, it's great for spinal erectors, but it doesn't do that much for your lats, and it's kinda good for the traps. But I still think that all the exercises that I mentioned here are better than the deadlift when it comes to hypertrophy of the back alone. But I do think you should include deadlift in your workout. Some overall tips for all back exercises are to pull with your elbows. Really imagine that the weight is here on your elbow and you're just pulling it. You could open your hand and you're just pushing it back with your elbow. This will help to engage the lats. Also make sure you keep your wrist straight throughout the movement. Do not flex your wrist. This can cause injury in your forearms, in your elbows, in your wrist, and it will make the movement weaker and you will fail because of the forearms. Start all movements by retracting your scapula by doing this, or if it's coming from above, doing this. This will better your posture, this will prevent injuries and will put you in the stronger position. Remember to keep your chest up during all movements. If you are doing a row with your chest caved in, you increase the risk of injury and you're not activating your lats as much. So chest up and pull this way. And the last thing, use a belt or straps if you need to on your heaviest sets. Only on your heaviest sets, because you want to strengthen your body as a whole. Now, when it comes to back training volume, I really recommend 12 to 16 sets per workout, 16 if you're more advanced, and I'm including here an isolating exercise for traps. So if you don't need to isolate your traps, maybe you can go with lower volume. Split these sets between 3 to 5 exercises. Do a rep range between 6 and 15. There's nothing special in this range, but it's the recommended range to accumulate volume for pretty much all body parts, so 6 to 15. And also keep in mind that you should work out each muscle twice per week. This seems to be optimal for muscle growth. And that's it for the video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it, hopefully you liked the start of a new series. I really want to give you my best lifting advice that I've accumulated along these last 5 years studying this sport. So yeah, like the video if you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already for more informative and epic content. And I'm gonna see you all in the next video.